Yeah, I want to talk about our journey where we changed the content production from classical photography to CGI. First of all, I want to just say some words about myself so you can bring my statement into a context. I've studied communication and media design, and then I worked for several agencies at art director and CGI artist. And for, well, 1.5 years ago now, I changed to Otto, and since then I'm responsible for implementing CGI as the production technology for the home and living division. For those of you who don't know Otto, Otto was founded in 1949 as a auto retailer in Hamburg, and since 1995 we're doing e-commerce. And today we're market leader in e-commerce with almost 1 billion euro revenue in the home and living in last year. And we've got approximately 4,500 employees in our headquarters in Hamburg. Since 1995, more or less, the way our customers buy furniture hasn't changed that much. They're still making their buying decision based on an image and based on text. And then this came across, augmented reality. In 2016, 2017, we made the first test, showed them to our board, and they were really amazed and wanted to have this to be able, or for the customers, that the customers can place their furniture in their own four walls before they're making the actual buying decision, which is a huge thing for us. So we knew, yeah, we want to have this technology, but how to go on now? We could have said, well, we are doing just the AR models and that's it. Then we have them in our app, but we thought we should strive for the big approach. So we decided to change the complete content production from classical photography to CGI. So from cutout images, overstaged images, to augmented reality models and real-time models for virtual reality. When I started there, I came across that number, so 390 images. For those of you who probably have seen the presentation from the Volvo guys before, this is a number from the automotive industry. When you deal with configurated, it's not that much, but here we're talking about 390 individual staged images, so rooms, bathrooms, living rooms, whatever. And this was something I haven't heard before in my career. So, I mean, when you do images for campaigns or even for catalogs, for car line catalogs, then you have 7 images, 10, or as I said, for catalogs, probably 60, 70, or 100, but never thousands or even 100,000. So I knew we had to change anything in the regular production pipeline, because like when we did it for campaigns, we gave it to a studio and the studio did everything, then modeling that needs to be done, the shading of the car, lighting and everything. But that wouldn't work with these numbers. So we did something, or we came across an idea that Henry Ford already had 100 years ago, to split the production into different parts and give these parts then to specialized studios who can really focus on doing exactly these parts, and then combine it into one production pipeline. So the first thing we split it was the digitization of the materials. Here it was very important for us to have a scan process where all the assets fall out, because we would need a lot of materials digitized, and when you would do that with artists, then you would need a lot of artists, which would lead to lower quality on average. So we thought we have to have some kind of scan process. Then the second one was the modeling, which is something that can be briefed, very precise, and also reviewed. And there are actually more studios out there who are very good in modeling than in staging German living rooms. And these studios should also do the cutout images, so the studio renderings for us. And then we have the second one, which is the actual rendering of these staged rooms. This is more or less done by studios in Europe or in Germany, because we made the experience that when you go to more to the east in Asia, then these rooms look like Asian living rooms or bathrooms with palms outside and that kind of stuff, and that doesn't really fit the need of our customers. So next was we had the decision to found our own CGI studio or to buy this by other studios out there. And we decided to not found our own studio because we wanted to be fast producing, especially AR models. And so we wanted to rely on existing studios that have a proper pipeline and proper infrastructure. I mean, for the last 70 years, we produced images on such a high level, so it wasn't easy to just change that process that already exists into a CGI process. And we knew that we would be more than busy to change that process, and didn't want to have that task on our table to even found a studio. Yeah, after making that decision, we knew we have to have some kind of pitch. So we talked with 120 studios all around the world, and then went into deeper talks with about 64 of them, and then 74 studios were invited to our pitch. And next I want to talk about is the pitch setup and how we did that. Yeah, first was a send out of 3 documents in total. The first one was a production document where everything was explained in detail, how we want to produce, how they have to structure 3D files, how we deal with different LODs and all of that, and together with a questionnaire. And the questionnaire was kind of important for us because there we get, again, an information about how big is the studio, how much capacities do they have, what kind of languages do the producers speak, where are they located, and all that kind of stuff. And then we had the send out of a price list. That was a bit weird for some of the studios, but we wanted to make sure that we just have studios in the pitch process that we could really afford. I mean, there have been studios in the questionnaire before who were, I mean, they did brilliant work, but we can't afford them. There was like 7 times our revenue if we would have done all our content with these studios. And then we developed kind of a system so that people from the subdivision 2, the modeling part, were able to set prices for different furnitures. We divided the furnitures, you see it on the left side, into 5 different complexity levels. It was from very simple, like a simple shelf was then very simple complexity level. Then the upholstering furnitures came across, and then up to the big sofas and that kind of stuff would be then very complex. And we put this together with the base data. So when there would be perfect CAD files, it would be way easier for the studios to convert them and to make them usable in CGI. And then there were technical drawings, and then the photos and dimensions as the worst data set, let's call it that way. And together we had then 50 different categories, so we received 15 different prices. Yeah, then it was about the production for the pitch. So we had now all the information we need about these studios. But we also wanted to make sure that this idea we had in splitting the production into 3 different parts would really work. So we produced the first subdivision, which was the digitization of the materials, reviewed them, found our winner shader set, and then passed the shader to subdivision 2. So they had to produce their models with that shader set. Then the subdivision 2 produces the models, and then we made a review of these models, and then we passed them over to subdivision 3. So they rendered the rooms with all the materials that has been done in subdivision 1 and the models from subdivision 2. Next I want to talk about is about the different subdivisions and how we briefed them and set them up a little bit more in details. So the first one, subdivision 1, was actually, we started with a creative brief where every information that they needed was described, things like how the procedure would work, the requirements, and all that kind of stuff. Resolution of the textures that we would need, a scan process, and all that. And those are the maps we asked for. It was important for us to have, on the one hand, maps for a classical workflow, so for rendering the subdivision 3 images with a reflection map, the glossy map, and the specular, and then a PBR workflow for our real-time stuff, especially for the AR models. And then we ask for additional information like a size info of the scanned part of the material to make sure that it's in the right size on the furniture then. And we ask for a shader board just to have like a visual to see the scan. We asked them also to provide us with a V-Ray shader, but just as a nice to have, because we knew that from the questionnaire, we knew that most of the studios would use V-Ray or Corona, so this was a nice to have. Yeah, next was then the send out of the materials. We tried to have like a variation of different materials, like different fabrics, fine one, rougher one, wooden flat surfaces, and kind of piano finish. So there is a variety of those materials to make sure that we can really review all the scans properly. And then when we received all the results, we did some very simple test renderings. Those were the shader boards that came from the studio that did the digitization. And then we just wrote them on very, very simple scenes just to have some kind of a reference and be able to judge them. We also did some close-ups of these materials. And then our content lab, who is responsible for writing or developing all the apps for the Otto Group, they wrote us a little application just to make sure that we can judge the PBR materials in our AR system, which helps a lot actually. Yeah, and as I said, after the evaluation, we took the materials and passed them over to subdivision 2. And here we also started with a creative brief where the modeling was described, the poly counts we'd like to see, LODs, what kind of furniture has to be modeled, and those kind of stuff. And those were the models we asked for. It was a sofa, a side table, then a table with a pair of chairs, the sideboard, a bed table, and a kitchen. And then we put them together to different rooms that should be then produced in subdivision 3. Yeah, I said it already, LODs. We asked for 3 different LODs. The first one is a super low poly model that was or should be maximum 150 kilobytes, which we use inside our app because the models are stored on server, and just when the customer wants to place the model inside of the AR app, then it was downloaded from the server. And in the meantime, or at first, the super low poly model was loaded just to make sure that the customer has already something to play with. It has no texture set. It was like a ghost object, if you want, semi-transparent and not very appealing, but he already had the shape of the furniture he wanted to place. The next one was then the low poly model for our AR application with a PBR texture set, and the high poly model for cutout and room renderings with the VR shader and the classical workflow texture set. Yeah, then the evaluation of subdivision through had to be done. We took a closer look really into the 3D model of the high poly model. We took a look at the studio renderings. We reviewed the low poly model inside of the AR app. Obviously, we also looked on prices, then the amount of models that can be done directly after the pitch when the production started per day, and then the amount of models they thought they can handle 6 months later. So just we get an idea of how many models we were able to produce in a certain amount of time. Then we passed those, were the winner models, if you want, to subdivision 3. And also there we had some kind of creative brief. On our website, we have all kind of furnitures, everything that you can imagine, and therefore we decided to also come up with some different rooms they had to stage that you already saw in Subdivision 2. It was a living room. Then we called it the freestyle room, where the studios were able to show their creative potential in a room where they were completely free to do whatever they wanted. Then the dining room, the bedroom, and the kitchen. They had the models that were ready to render, shaded, everything was ready to go. And then they received some other information, such as the colors, the floor, and the walls. These came out of a document that we have at Otto, which is normally for the regular image production. It's called our room portfolio, where all the different styles are defined, the colors for these styles, the styling, and those kind of stuff. So we took that just and passed it over into the CGI production. What I want to show you next is the results that came out of that. So these are some results I want to share with you from Subdivision 1, for the room number 1, the living room. The colors are a bit saturated, to be honest, but you get an idea of how different the results look like. And I always want to share with you my favorite image. I like that one a lot. I mean, you have a clear light direction, but also in the shadows, it's not too dark. It's kind of lively, but not really messy. So that was my favorite from that room. Then we had the freestyle rooms, where they really could be creative. And you also see here like the variety of images that they send out. And this is my favorite one, actually, because our content managers who decided how the room should like, where we present our furnitures, are always limited by the studio. So when the studio has a ceiling of, let's say, 3 meters, then they can't produce a room with 4 meters, obviously. And with CGI now they're completely free. They can imagine whatever they want, and we're able to produce. And I like that one because the architecture was so unseen, with this freestanding wall in the middle. And yeah, it's a nice one. The dining room, this is the overview for that one. And what you can see here is that also rooms that have a window give you directly an idea of where they're located. Whether you see like that one here on the bottom, you see down on different on roofs, you get the feeling of being real high in a skyscraper, or some others where you can have a look in the garden, so it feels like more on the countryside. And I like that one most, actually, because the floor fits to the wall, and you have the fitting window frames, and even the outside fits to the style of room that you see here, kind of industrial area. Then these are the results from room number 4, the bedroom. Also, again, what I thought here was that you can feel that some of the studios are just having CGI artists, but others are really dealing with architecture, styling, and those kind of stuff. And I'm recognizing that some studios are or former photo studios are placing there some CG artists and think, that's it, now we can do CGI, but it's way more, right? You still need an architect in a way. You need a photographer. You need a stylist to get to great results. I like that one here again. The light distribution is quite friendly. Shadows are not too dark. It's kind of lively, but again, not messy or too busy. So that worked perfect. These are the kitchens. The results of these ones. And then this one is my favorite one, because they were really going into details. You see already the pancakes on the table, like mommy was standing next to the camera, calling the kids for breakfast, and all the stuff that was inside of the shelf on the right, which makes it quite lovely. Yeah, then the assessment for Subdivision 3, these were the the parameters where we judged those. So it was the location of the studio which was important for us, also to be able to talk properly with the producers. Then the number of artists, as I said, the languages, again the pricings, and then the voting of the team, because we did kind of a dot voting with the team. In our war room, we placed all the images from all the studios next to each other, and then everybody was judging them. And in the end, we came on 21 studios we wanted to work with out of these 37. And the result was then like this. We had for subdivision 1, for the material scanning, we came on 2 studios, because we try to have kind of a lead studio for every subdivision that helped us with the implementing of the process and of the change, of the technology change. So there was chaos for subdivision 1 with their VR scans. They were simply the best. There was everything we needed. They are super precise, and yeah, we were quite happy with them. And then subdivision 2, we had 8 studios, where the Recom group from Stuttgart is our lead studios. They have a lot of experience with soft body modeling for the automotive industry, and also full CGI images for automotive. So that was a nice one. And then for subdivision 3, we have 12 studios, as I said, most in Europe or Germany, with 747 as our lead studio. It's a photo studio from Hamburg, and in the past they did just photography, and then 2010 they started with CGI, and now CGI is they're specialized more on architecture, furniture, and interior design. So very nice stuff they're doing. The whole process now looks like this: that we take, when we want to produce a furniture, we send the materials here to Bulgaria, to Chaos Group. They make a documentation of all of the materials that came there, categorize them, take a look which ones are possible to scan and which ones are not. The one that can be scanned will be scanned by them, and the one that are not able to scan goes then to Recom. They also have a studio here in Sofia, so it was logistic-wise quite good for us that we don't have to ship the not scannable materials again around the globe to somewhere. So that was good. And then we do the modeling everywhere in the world, more or less, and then the 12 studios who do the subdivision 3 for all kind of room renderings in Europe or Germany. So now we knew with which studios we want to produce, but nevertheless we don't have a proper production pipeline or anything that was really working. So the next question was, how do we set up the rest of it? We decided to set up a 2-day workshop with all of our lead studios. So those were producer, post artists, CG artists, product managers, and we came together. And you see it here on the left on the wall. We started with this production description for the pitch, and went through every single detail of the production. How should UV maps look like? How the structure of a 3D file look like? What kind of stuff needs to be done so we can start with automated renderings and that kind of stuff. It was quite intense. It doesn't really look like on the left. It looks more like lazy, but it wasn't. And during these 2 days, an idea came across to produce all the rooms in advance, more or less, or kind of a room configurator, to be able to produce faster, so the artist can really focus on making the interior design and not the architecture anymore, and to avoid discussions about architecture during the production, which helped us really a lot. So we call them our room modules. So as I said, we pre-produced 3 rooms. They were completely configurable. We have the loft, the room, and the townhouse, where ceilings were adjustable, the size of the windows were adjustable, the style of the windows, the doors, and all that kind of stuff. So you were very flexible to set up your room. configuration. Yeah, and here are some examples from that room modules. You see that with the same room, there are quite different styles that could be produced. And here the two others, the townhouse with the gallery on top. And we always try to have a second room next to that one. You see it when I go back here on these. It was important for us to be able to open a door, to have some depth, so that it really feels like a flat or a townhouse. Yeah, and then we recognized that when we would only go with backplates, also for the stuff that is close to a window or a door, a glass door, then we would be very restricted with the height of the camera, because that would then, of course, orientate on the backplate that you see out of the window. So we thought, well, then let's produce some stuff that is around the windows or around these glass doors, also in 3D. So we started producing like terraces, balconies, and all that kind of stuff in 3D to be flexible with the camera height. And we didn't have to orientate the camera on these backplates, but then for the far distance, we use backplates. Then the next was the accessories for the interiors. So when we're producing now in a studio, there are no heaters and all that kind of details, because it would be way too much effort to place all that kind of stuff. So this is also a big advantage in CG production, because it just makes the rooms feel and look even more authentic and realistic. Now we knew all the assets that we need for the production, and that was all good, but still, you remember that chart. Our production flow doesn't really hasn't been defined. So we had to define the whole process. Yeah, this was our war room for the process. That was actually quite hard. It took us 2 months. Photography, or we do photography for the last 70 years or something. They started centuries ago with photo production, and then it was adjusted and scaled and went bigger and bigger, but it hasn't been visualized. So in the last 70 years, there hasn't been one large image of the whole process. So we need to get everybody involved and ask him how everything really works inside the house with the photo production. And then we had this in the end, as I said, which took us 2 months. And then we took that, duplicated it, and looked, what do we have to really change to be able to produce all our content in CGI. Because you can imagine, in a company like Otto, there are so many people involved in the whole content production process that you don't want to onboard all of them in every detail. So we try to change as little as possible, so they still feel comfortable in producing all these content. So when a content manager nowadays, or back in the days, wanted to produce an image or has a new product that should be sold on our platform, they briefed the studio and asked the manufacturer for the sofa, let's say, and they sent the sofa to the studio. It was produced, uploaded into our system. Whoops. And from our system, then onto Otto.de. Now it's like that you want to produce an image, you ask the manufacturer to send the material samples to Chaos Group for the scanning and the data into our system. When the shaders will be uploaded into our system from Chaos Group, the TV2 studio, in that case, Recom, gets the information that the shaders is available, and then they're producing the models. And once they uploaded the models into our system, the manufacturer is asked to approve them, because only the manufacturer knows the product in detail. Then they approve them, and once they are approved, the Subdivision 3 studio gets an information that the models are available. Then they're producing the images, upload them into our system, and then it runs out onto Otto.de. You see, it's kind of way more complicated than the regular photo production. And this was the production phases then in total, or the process. So we have here our data acquisition, then the scanning of the materials, then the modeling and the studio renderings, the renderings of the room, and then in the end, metadata and the run out onto Otto.de of the files. You see, these two processes were so different that we had to actually do some kind of onboarding. And we have two kinds of onboarding in our company. The first one is for the manufacturers. We have more than 280 manufacturers who knew in the past how to produce content like this, and now it has to be changed into that. So you can imagine some of them are really still producing without any data at all. So there is somebody just screwing the furniture together. So we have to make sure that to keep the fear down, to give them a comfortable feeling, to see how do they produce their furniture, what kind of data can we probably get, and yeah, to make sure that this production pipeline works then also in reality. Especially when you have a furniture, a sofa or couches or any upholstering manufacturer, they have almost no data because when a sofa will be produced, it's almost everything done by hand. The upholstering, the sewing of the seams, everything is handmade. So they have no data. But nevertheless, this isn't a problem for us so far, because we've developed kind of a system with a data sheet that need to be filled out by the manufacturer in combination with a sheet where the material will be located on the furniture, so the artist has a good overview of that. And this in combination with a photo briefing for the manufacturer, where it's exactly explained how they should produce images as a base for the modeling. Doesn't have to be in a photo studio, could be just somewhere in their storage with a smartphone, is enough for us. So the other one is the onboarding of the studios, because we have recognized in some tests that there are so many different product numbers and style numbers in the Otto universe that also the studios need kind of an onboarding. So what we're doing is we have our production phase that you see here, where we're just producing images month by month. And next to that, we start with the onboarding of the studio, explain them how everything works, and producing the next phase. And once we're recognizing that they're more or less equal with the production time, we bring them up to the regular production, and they're implemented into that production pipeline and can produce images. The last thing I want to show you is the quality check in AR. Our mobile lab developed a system how studios are able to check their produced AR models by themselves, because we don't have that much content manager that can check every model in detail. So the studios can do this by themselves. Example, Recom did some AR models for us, so they get an access to our systems for Android and iOS. This is the structure, how they should upload their data. It's a zip file with a product number, and then all the different kind of parts that need to be stored in that zip file, and then they're uploading the zip file into our system. And from there, it will be unzipped, converted, zipped again, and uploaded into the different systems. And once that has happened, Recom gets an email with a notification if the upload has worked, if everything was fine. Then they are able to make the quality check in the AR app, gets an information to the content manager, and then the content manager approves it, and everything runs out into our system. And now I'm on time, so if you have any questions, I would like to answer them. Thank you very much. Thank you.